Bonehead Guitars. Let's go build some junk. With the disappointment of my grand vision not coming to fruition, I thought we could look at a little wood porn. I wanted to try to get into talking a little bit about color and wood combos, and I thought today we might do a little bit of that, or at least start a conversation. Because I'm no expert on color or wood or design or anything, but I have stumbled across some things that really do look good, and some that I wasn't as happy with as I thought I would be. You know, conceptually it seemed like it'd be a great idea, and when the rubber met the road, it was, I wouldn't say disappointing or lackluster, just not quite as stunning as other things were. Now, when it comes to wood, at least the wood that I have access to, largely there is, I hate to say black and white because it's not really. Those are extreme cases of, or extreme ends of the brown spectrum. Most of what we got to deal with is brown. Most of your exceptions to that are red or reddish or pink. You know, some level of red mixed into brown. But there are a few situations where we got some real yellows. And then, of course, Purple Heart, you know, is kind of a thing of its own. But beyond that, you usually have some level of brown with some level of red, you know, mixed into it. There are a few that are kind of a mid-tone, kind of caramely type. Like, of course, the mahogany we can get our hands on. And honestly, I don't know what species of mahogany that is that I can get my hands on and that I see a lot of. Obviously not the highly sought after like Hunter and those that are hard to get your hands on. So I don't know exactly what these are, but I also know there are a lot of different species that they just refer to as mahogany. But the mahogany I can get my hands on. Leopard wood, usually, it's mostly just a mid-brown. There's not a whole lot of redness to it. And then, of course, you know, we're all familiar with the light ones. Flame maple, the bird's eye. I wish I could get my hands on some quilted. Zebra wood tends to be, I mean, it's just brown. You've got really nice lightness with really dark striations. Well, not really dark. Well, they're fairly dark, but sometimes they can be fairly caramel colored as well. But there's not much redness in that. Ash, you know, a little yellower sometimes than, you know, some of the other stuff, but really no redness to that either. And I think this is alder. And then the dark ones, and this is where we get into some really pretty stuff. Now, this is where I also run into some questions, because I think the first piece of something I was told Bacote looked like this. Caramely, wonderful goodness. Absolutely. One of my all-time favorite fretboards I've ever made in my life was made out of this stuff. But I don't know if that's actually Bacote or not, because supposedly this is as well. Really, really, really pretty stuff with a lot of character. This does have a little bit of a kind of an orange quality to it, maybe. Not very reddish though. I keep harping on red. And then I'll get to wine in a minute. When we start looking at combos. Of course, Wenge. Everybody knows about Wenge. I thought what would be one of my favorite fretboards ever. I put a knot at the 12th fret, so it almost looked like sound waves coming out from there. And it kind of got lost, you know, with the frets. That's the problem with putting some really pretty figured stuff on a fretboard, is a lot of what you like about it gets lost in the cross frets. And then we get to Cerakote, which, oh my god, Cerakote. When it comes to fretboard material, I can't imagine anything that looks better than something like this. It's just that stuff. This is Cerakote as well. There's a lot of crazy variation in how Cerakote winds up looking, but oh my god, gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. But definitely brown, very, very brown. Okay, now when we get into variations of redness, there are a lot of possible variations. I'm pretty sure this is Padauk. And Padauk tends to be pretty damn red. A little bit of orange to it, but it's pretty reddish. I think this is Padauk as well. This is Canary, but with Canary, I've seen a lot of different color variations, but there's a lot of pink there. There's a lot of yellow, but it's really pinkish as well. Babinga almost looks, I mean, if you're just looking at it, it looks brown to you like mahogany or leopard, but when you look at them together, there's quite a bit of pinkness in Babinga. What I'm getting at with the redness is sometimes it's hard to match something with some redness to something that it really does match well with. It's easy to conceptually think this will match, and it doesn't. Not quite so hard to do with Cocobolo, because it is so dark red. But it can be kind of tricky to pair with stuff too because of that redness. I think this is Bloodwood. It's a really light piece of Bloodwood, but I think that's Bloodwood. It can have some really crazy, interesting figure in it, but it's, you know, they call it Bloodwood because it's reddish. It's got a lot of redness to it. Just as an example, this is mostly Canary. This is all of this, other than the Purple Heart, is Canary. And this particular piece, it had purple in it, it had red in it. I mean, relatively vivid. Some of those colors have faded a little bit, but I mean, the second I saw it, I thought that has to go with Purple Heart. It would just be perfect. Most of the time that I see Purple Heart paired with something and I'm really impressed with the way it looks, it's usually something really light, you know, maple or it's usually maple. This particular case, Canary Wood, I thought turned out really, really well with it, but it was a bit of a gamble. I've tried to put it with some relatively yellow stuff since, and it didn't turn out quite as fabulous. The only thing I really know on wood combinations is things that I've tried that just obviously seem to me worked out really well. I do try to consider and concentrate a lot on contrast. You want, well, I don't know. I think things work out best aesthetically when you do have, you know, some strong contrast in color, in texture, in, I mean, just about any possible way you could think of to introduce contrast. So I found scraps for a lot of the neck blinks that I've done. I've gotten to where most of the time what I really like the most tend to just be browns. Maple, walnut, and I'm pretty sure that's leopard. But 3 different tones of brown. The majority of it, whatever's going to be the rails, tends to dominate. The core is usually plays a pretty big part in the overall guitar, and your runners, tend to be kind of your accent color. But of the browns, leopard wood with a Wenge core, that turned out pretty damn pretty. Pretty damn pretty, he said. And you can go at that any way you want. But Wenge, rails, and something in the mid-range with, maple accent. This one, I remember, turned out absolutely gorgeous. This, is how it most commonly winds up. Because mahogany you tend to have a lot of and work with a lot, and it's a standard for guitars, and especially for necks. So you went up with mostly mahogany, walnut runners, and a maple core. Mahogany, of course, I think the main reason it's chosen for necks a lot because it has a real small tight grain that tends to just be straight. It's just built for that type of application. Like I was saying about the reds, it's kind of hard to find something that really pairs well with red. However, one of the prettiest things I have ever done in my life, my hands down, my favorite neck I ever made was this. Bird's eye maple, Peruvian walnut, and I'm pretty sure that was Red Heart. That Red Heart. I think this was Paduke, maple, and Bloodwood, I think. Not bad, but I mean, the variation between those two is really lost. But when you're doing the red in there, there's really no room for anything else. I think this worked so well because the vividness of that red, but I mean, the walnut and the maple are almost like black and white compared. One of the early ones I did was Wenge and Paduke, and I wish I had that piece cleaned up because it doesn't look good the way it is. Paduke and Wenge can be a very, very nice combination. I put Paduke with mahogany. No, that's canary. Yeah, after the canary purple heart thing, I thought, surely canary would go well with red as well. And it did. If I remember right, this guitar wound up with Babinga top, which was really kind of pinkish, and color-wise, I really didn't think it worked out all that well. But it wasn't a bad choice for a neck. This worked fairly well for putting some Purple Heart to use. But it just, I don't know. I've never been super happy with it, and I don't know if that's mahogany or if I did canary on that thing too. It looks a little yellow for mahogany, but a little dark for canary, maybe. That turned out really well, actually. The Purple Heart, the walnut, and maple. So, unless you only go two-tone, with purple or red stuff, you're kind of limited on what you got to work with. But, it can work out. Like I said, all-time favorite. I don't know. I talked like maybe I had the genius of design when it comes to color combinations, and I've noticed what doesn't look good and what really does look good. I don't entirely understand why, except like I keep harping on, sometimes red and purple, depending on what you put them with, it just doesn't quite work right. But that's entirely, completely, and totally subjective too. You may think it looks absolutely fantastic. Point is, I may think something's awesome and you think it's trash. I don't know. You may agree. I think most people would agree. That's just outstandingly gorgeous. When I go with solid browns, three tones of just plain non-red browns, those tend to work really well in my eyes. And for whatever reason, the majority of it dark, at least on the neck, just tends to look so incredible. See, those are like mirror image. Not exactly. But both go really, really well because that red is just red. For some reason, I think when it's less, there's a lot of contrast here. There's less. The difference there is really subtle, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's just kind of lost. But that looks alright to me. This looks really good to me, even though there's very little contrast between that walnut and the purple heart. It still kind of works. I don't know. I don't know what the exact takeaways are. I just know some things look good, some things don't, and when you get into the reds, it's hard to find something that you really are going to be happy with. I plan to, try to get a little more prepared for this discussion, and find some more things about this to concentrate on and look at. I don't know. I thought just rambling for a little while would be a good start. Anyway, I hope this hasn't been a complete and total letdown. At least you got to see some wood. Maybe those color combinations give you some ideas that you like. Maybe you see some things, and it probably spark some ideas in your head for other stuff that you've got, because you may have access to some woods that I don't. All I know is I have a real passion for the beauty of wood grain, and there are a lot of things I've noticed in different species with, the kind of grain and patterns that they tend to have, and how, vivid those things are, and how they match up with some others sometimes. There have been times when I didn't necessarily want to build another guitar, but I saw a piece of wood that just had to be, and that was my inspiration to keep going and put something together. There have been a lot of times that happened. I see a piece of wood and I think, oh my God, that needs to be a fretboard, or a body, or something. The next two builds, the 2x4 and the bass, were all inspired by one single piece of Wenge. You'll see what I'm talking about in not too distant future. But I'm considering this just the beginning of discussing this. I'd like to have further discussions on this type of stuff. Some of you guys probably have a lot more insight into some of this than I do. It'd be cool to hear your thoughts. But I don't know. Hopefully it's been interesting or vaguely entertaining. But anyway, More to come. Until next time. Thanks for hanging out and watching. If you're digging what we're doing, like this video, go subscribe. We'll catch you next time. More goodies to come. Bye. Like, subscribe.